Hello everyone and welcome to my video on the new Odd Eye. I say new, it's not new I guess, but a video on the Odd Eyes deck that is getting new support in the Overframe set, Magnificent Monsters. This deck got a structure deck in the new Arc 5 legendary decks, and unfortunately I do think it's unplayable without these cards, the overframes that we're getting in the Magnificent Monsters. These completely change the deck plays. Like, I think these overframes are more important for this deck than they are for any other deck in the game. They do everything for you. I straight up don't think this deck like functions without them. Let's get into it. So this is pure Odd Eyes, and I know there are a lot of different ways you can utilize these cards. You could play Pen Magician, you could play Supreme King, you could play like some Power Patron Pendulum slot pile, right? But I kind of think that the best way to play these cards is in a deck that is a little more focused, and I think this Odd Eyes list is a little more focused. I do want to preface, before I get into anything else, a lot of my theory from this list is taken from a list I saw on a channel called Entertainer. They are an Odd Eyes One Trick who recently started making videos again with the new support. I'll link them in the description. A lot of my list is very similar to theirs. I'm just on more non-engine instead of some of the extra like consistency and tech cards they were on. But they make really good stuff. I'm sure they'll put out more good stuff for this deck. So please check them out if you are interested in learning more about this deck. There's also like good replays and stuff just in the video they put up with these cards. But that video did really impress me. I thought this list looked really, really good. And something else that impressed me is, so one of the issues I had with this deck looking at it is that it does not have one card combos. But I did realize Monkeyboard specifically, unfortunately, it's the only one, but Monkeyboard is a one card combo, but you have to cycle through all these new cards. But Monkeyboard is a one card combo now, which is pretty cool. That is the vid combo I'm going to be showing off at the end of this. It's not bad. Like the things this deck can do are pretty good. I will just go ahead and get into the card by card. We've got 3 Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. This card allows you to, it has a bunch of effects, but not all of them really matter. The scale effect is that you cannot pendulum summon except dragon monsters, and you can target a dragon, fusion, synchro, Xyz in your grave, destroy this card, and if you do, summon that monster. That effect does come up. Being able to reborn like the Vortex Dragon or the Soul Blaze is something we do in our combo, or like that's probably about it. That's probably the only 2 things you'll realistically be reborning, but those are both like good cards, being able to reborn. So just having this card being monster reborn on legs is good. It also pops itself, which is important for some of our effects. Then its monster effects that matter is that you can discard this card, pay 500, and add a level 8 or lower Dragon Pendulum from your deck to your hand. That is the most important part about this card. It gets you into a bunch of your pieces. It gets you into either the new Odd Eyes Overframe monster, or it gets you into the Arc Pendulum Dragon, which is one of our most important combo pieces. This card is super important for that. Importantly, none of the effects in this card are once per turn. So the search isn't once per turn, so you could loop that over and over. And the pop to summon effect isn't once per turn, so you can loop that as well. There's a lot of cool little synergies you can do with that I am a big fan of. This card's very, very, very strong. It's one of the most important cards in the deck for sure. Then we have 3 copies of the new Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and the 4 Heavenly Dragons. This card is the most important card for this deck that's coming out. This is the reason that I think you need the overframes. This card is the scale effect that during the main phase you can destroy it, and if you do, add a pendulum monster with 15 or less attack from your deck to your hand. But for the rest of the turn, unless you pendulum summon after this effect resolves, you cannot activate monster effects in the field. So this card is really weird because in most pendulum decks, it does just feel like a worse Beyond the Pendulum. But in this deck specifically, 2 things matter. First, this deck is not too good at getting to Beyond the Pendulum before you pendulum summon. And 2, and more importantly, this deck really cares about the fact that you can still use scale effects and like in-hand effects after you use this card. So like you can still use your Seer effect to pop and add. You still use the Arc Pendulum to summon a guy. You can still use just various things that are good. All the Rev Dragon effects can still be used after you use this card. Monkeyboard can still be used, right? There's a bunch of things you can still do with this card after this lock, which is a huge deal. It means you can keep playing after using this. This thing also has the monster effects that this Pendulum Summon card gains the effects that it gains attack equal to the difference between the Pendulum scales of the two monster and Pendulum Zones times 300, and any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. So this card is usually going to be massive and do double damage. So this card is an OTK machine. So like if you use, I believe it's if you use a 1 and an 8 after you Pendulum Summon this, you're realistically probably going to have like I think it's a 4900 attack monster. Yeah, that's right. A 4900 attack monster. That does double damage. And notably, this does work for every copy of this card that you have. So if you pen like 2 of these, you've got 2 4900 beaters that like do double damage, which is so scary, right? Like that's just so much damage you're able to put out super easily. This deck is actually really good at OTKing because of this card. And then it has one other effect, which is if this card in the monster zone is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can add it to your hand. Then if it was destroyed by your opponent, you can summon it. This is nice for like just surviving, because it means this card survives 2 hits, and when paired with like the Arc Pendulum effect to float, you can just put out a lot of bodies into like a board, which is nice. After that, we've got 3 copies of Performapal Monkeyboard. This is our only 1-card starter in the deck. True 1-card starter, I should say. It has the really only one relevant effect, which is, unless, well, 2, I guess. Unless you have a pendulum card in your other pendulum zone, this card's pendulum scale becomes 4. Importantly, this can be negated, unlike how most of these effects work. So if you make Beyond the Pendulum, you will be able to negate that effect. So this will be a scale 1 after you do that. During the main phase of this card is activated this turn, you can add a level 4 lower Performapal from your deck to your hand, and that is a hard once per turn. So this is your 1-1-card starter, because this... that's just how it works out. I don't really know how to explain it without just saying that's how it works out, because all of the other cards that you can start with do have like downsides, or they are cards that you need for the combo that you can do with this. So at the moment, that's how it is. If I'm wrong, please let me know, by the way. It's very possible I've just not looked into something, or I've not realized something about these cards that makes something a 1-card combo that I'm not aware of, right? So I would love to know about that. After that, we've got 3 copies of Horoscope Sorcerer, the Stargazer Magician. This is one of the other new Overframe cards, and this card's also really, really strong, and is one of the reasons I think that this type of deck is much better pure. And it has the scale effect that when a spell card or effect activated by your opponent resolves, if you control a Magician, Odd Eye, or an Odd Eyes monster, you can negate that effect, then destroy this card. So this card's really strong as a spell negate on resolution. This beats stuff like Super Poly, which is something... I struggle to think of any deck that can do that. So huge ups for this deck. Then it has the monster effects that you can discard one other Magician, Pendulum, Performapal, or Odd Eyes monster as cost to summon this from the hand. And if this card is special summoned, you can add a Pendulum with 2500 attack from your deck to your hand. Then you can target 1 Pendulum monster card you control, destroy it. Then you add 1 face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. So this card is very, very good. It does this is like the strongest card to start with if it resolves. So the reason I think that you should be playing this deck pure is because you want to open like this card plus like a name to discard, plus like ideally some other extender. The issue I do have with this card is that discarding a card in your hand for cost is usually going to feel pretty bad. Especially in a Pendulum deck, you really don't want to be discarding cards a lot of the times in Pendulum decks. Just because they don't typically have any benefits to going to grave. This deck has a few, like the Butler and Ange both have decent grave effects, so it's decent in that regard, but it is rough if you like summon this card and then it gets impermed. But this card's also just really good to implement into combos, right? If you're like pen summoning this card does end up feeling a lot better. And this card has a bunch of crazy stuff it can search. In this deck, we're not playing a ton. We're really just playing the Odd Eyes Pendulum and the other new card, the Astrograph Sorcerer, the Star Magician, which is the card that kind of pairs really well with Horoscope. It's like the reason to... It's what makes this card work. That or OG Astrograph, which you could play as well. We don't have it in this list, but if you wanted, you could absolutely play that card. The new Astrograph lets you has the scale effect that during the main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, place a Pendulum monster whose Pendulum scale is 1 from your hand or deck in your zone, but it cannot activate its Pendulum effects this turn. Usually you'll be using this to get like the Horoscope Sorcerer, so you have the negate. And notably, the negate can be used even if you scale this on that turn, because this scale effect doesn't activate. So that you can't activate the effect this turn doesn't actually matter if you place it with Horoscope. And then if a face-up monster card you control is destroy, battle, or card effect, you can summon this card from your hand. Then you can summon one of those destroyed monsters from your grave or face-up extra deck. And then it has the on-field effect that during the main phase, you can quick effect tribute this card. Then you can fusion summon a Dragon Fusion from your extra by shuffling its materials from your field or face-up extra into the deck. So this card lets you, like, very easily get in a Vortex. You can also summon it on your opponent's turn, which is super nice. It means you can theoretically weaponize the bounce effect of Vortex. Also, this float effect is super strong. It's good for pushing into boards. It's good just for extension in general. This card's a level 7, so it's really good for getting into Absolute Dragon. This card's just very, very strong. The reason we're on one of it is because I just wanted to fit more non-engine, and this card isn't a starter, and it doesn't pair well with all of our engine pieces. It's really just, like, you want to open this with the Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. That's kind of the only card it pairs super well with, but you could bump this up if you think it's good enough. But you're mostly running this as like a combo piece, right? You're using this as a combo piece to get into Horoscope or to pair with Horoscope when you use its effect to search, right? This is usually what you'll be searching, since you can like go Horoscope, search this, pop it, scale something from deck, pop the thing you scaled, add back the Astrograph. Astrograph will trigger, letting you summon it and the monster that you popped that you scaled from deck. So, like, just tons and tons of value in that regard. Very strong. Then we've got 3 copies of Perform Pal Skullcrobat Joker. This card is a classic, so it's very simple. It's got the scale effect that you cannot pendulum summon monsters except Perform Pal, Magicians, and Odd Eyes. And then when this card is normal summoned, you can add a Perform Pal, Magician, or Odd Eyes from your deck to your hand. Simple stuff, right? This card is fine. It's solid. It gets you your pieces. The normal summon effect isn't once per turn. That's interesting. It means if you have a way to get a second normal summon, you could get a second search off of this. Just something to think about. Then we've got the one of. So we've got one Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. This card is a normal monster with the scale effect that if an Odd Eyes card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can summon an Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or grave. So this card is really good as both a high scale, this is usually one you'll be scaling, and also like a combo piece. Because you have a bunch of ways to pop different Odd Eyes monsters, and this will trigger after you do that. So really good stuff there. It's also just good in the grind game because it can also bring guys back from the grave. So like it's going to be really easy to just recycle Vortex over and over and over, which is really nice. Like this is the best deck at using Vortex for that reason. This card is really good. After that, we've got 1 copy of Perform Pal Odd Eyes Seer. You can target a Perform Power, or the scale effect lets you target a Perform Power Odd Eyes card in your grave, add it to your hand, then destroy this card. This is important because it lets you loop the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon to then use its effects again, which is huge. Then it has the on-field effect that during the main phase, you control this Pendulum Summoned card. You can activate the following effect based on its battle position. So if it's an attack, you can banish the target of Perform Power Odd Eyes monster in your grave and summon it. And then if it's in defense, you can take a Perform Power Odd Eyes from your deck and either add it to your extra deck or send it to the grave. This card's very, very, very important for combos. You need this card. It's very good. Then we've got 1 Perform Power Odd Eyes Butler. This card has the scale effect that once per turn opponent's monster declares an attack, you can add an Odd Eyes Pendulum from your grave to your extra deck face up, and if you do negate that attack, then gain life points equal to that Pendulum monster's attack. That effect isn't super relevant, but it's cute. If it comes up, it'll be really funny. Then we have the actual effect that matters, which is the monster effects. If this card is in the hand or grave, you can target a Perform Power Odd Eyes monster card you control, pop it, then summon this card, then pop it. And then if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in the pen zone. So this card is really good for popping our guys to trigger the Arc Pen. That is usually what you'll be using this for. It's also just like an Odd Eyes monster with a grave effect, which is super useful for a bunch of reasons. This card is good. This is a lot of the time what you'll be sending with Seer, or you'll send the other card that we will get into soon. Next up, we have the Perform Pal Gentrude. This card, I'm not sure if this card is required. This is probably the most cuttable card from the list, to be honest. But I'll go ahead and get into it. If Perform Pal Lady Ange is in your other Pendulum Zone and you control no monsters, or only Pendulum monsters, you can add an Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. Then in the Monster Zone, if this is destroyed, you can place a Perform Pal Pendulum from your deck in your Pendulum Zone. And then if this if this card is in the face up extra, you can discard a Pendulum, add this card to your hand. Then you can return a Perform Power Odd Eyes card from your Pendulum Zone to your hand. And you can only use one of those effects per turn. So this card is solid. It's not bad, but I didn't find it I didn't like implement it into like the 1-card combo I'm going to show off today. So you might be able to cut this card and be fine. It was in the list in Entertainer's video, and I do think this card's good, and I could definitely see the ways it would come up just for like scale math and stuff. And it's a high scale, which is nice, right? And it's like recyclable, which is interesting. but I could see a world where you don't play this card for sure. After that, we've got 1 copy of Performance Pal Lady Ange. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving your monster and an opponent's monster, you can discard a Pendulum monster. That opponent's monster loses 1,000 attack. Again, not an effect that's super relevant, but could come up. And then the monster effects, which are the ones that matter, is that you can discard this card in a Performance Pal to draw 2 cards. And then if this card's in your grave and you control an Odd-Eyes card or Gentrude, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. And you can only use 1 effect of Lady Ange per turn. So this card is also really important for the combo. A lot of times you'll be sending this and then rescaling it later. This card is quite nice for that reason. After that, we've got 1 copy of Performance Pal Odd-Eyes Synchron. This is a card that basically allows all of our synchro plays. It has the scale effect to once per turn target a Performance Pal Odd-Eyes monster you control. This turn that monster is treated as a tuner, and its level becomes 1. But the important thing is the scale, or the monster effects, which if this card is special from the extract is used as synchro material, you can banish it. And then when this card is normal summon, you can target a level 3 or lower Performance Power Odd-Eyes in your grave, summon it, but it has its effects negated. That's like cute, doesn't matter a ton. If it does matter, it'll be nice. And then once per turn, you target a card in your Pendulum Zone, summon it, and if you do, it has its effects negated. And if you do, immediately synchro summon a synchro using only that monster and this card. So that is the important part about this card. Obviously, it just being like an Odd-Eyes and Performance Power and a Dark Spellcaster, which we'll get into in a minute, is really important. But the important thing about this is that monster effect that just lets you summon a guy and then immediately synchro. And again, this card just enables all of your synchro plays. It allows us to do a lot of interesting things. So keep this card in mind. It is very, very, very important. Then our last one of Performance Pal monster is our Performance Pal Odd-Eyes Valet. When opponent's monster declares an attack, you make that opponent's monster lose 300 for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. You will be putting a lot of pendulums in your extra, so at minimum, this is going to make them lose like a ton of attack, which is funny, if nothing else. And then if this card is normal or special, you can send a Perform Power Odd-Eyes monster from your deck to the grave, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster's until the end of this turn. And then if it's in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in the pen zone. It's nothing crazy, but you do use this card in some of the combos. It does come up just for getting like the Lady Ange or the Butler into rotation. You can also just like send Lady Ange and then immediately rescale it as well, which could also come up. It's a solid card. Nothing crazy, but it's not bad. Yeah, good card. Then we have 1 copy of Dark Magical Curtain. This is not a Odd-Eyes card. It's the last card in our list. But this is the thing we're going to be searching off of DMod. If you've noticed, multiple of the cards in this list are able to be level 6 or higher Dark Spellcasters, which makes DMod super easy to make in this deck. The Odd-Eyes Seer is a way we can do it, and the Astrograph's a way we can do it, so we have multiple ways there. I'm not playing Gaze of Timaeus in the main deck. You absolutely could and play a little Dragoon line. But instead, I'm playing the new Overframe, which allows you to have both players summon a Dark Spellcaster from their hand or deck. And then if you summoned a Dark Magician, you can add a thing. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you get to E-Telly out a Dark Spellcaster. So you can get a bunch of different things in this deck. You can get the Horoscope Sorcerer to pen summon it back. Oh, and neither player can use the effects of that monster. So, you can't like summon a guy and then immediately use its effects, which, you know, obviously matters. Otherwise, this card would be so unbelievably strong. It would be the best card in the deck. You can summon the Horoscope to pen summon it back later. That's really good. Summon Astrograph to like do whatever, like again, pen summon it back later and do whatever, or add it back and then use its effects. Odd-Eyes Seer to get that in a rotation. Butler isn't bad. You can get that in rotation. The one we're usually getting is the Odd-Eyes Synchron, just because it's an easy access to our tuner. And like you can go like DMod, get that, search, summon the Synchron from deck, and then make like a Chaos Angel or the Ally of Justice Synchro if you want. So just easy lines there. I do like this card a lot as like the thing you're searching. Again, you could search like Gaze, but I think this is a little better. There's also a lot of combos that like just need you to have another body. So it's very nice to be able to turn like Seer into 2 bodies, or Seer or Astrograph into 2 bodies, which lets you keep extending from there. That's like really, really nice in my opinion. After that, we've got the non-engine, 1 copy of Called By, 1 copy of Talents, 3 copies of Crown, which is really good in this deck because it lets you just swing into your opponent's face with the Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon to deal them a ton of damage. 1 copy of Magnuma, because we do have dragons in the stack. 3 copies of Fua, 2 copies of Perulia, 3 copies of Ash, and 2 copies of Droll. The non-engine count's actually really good on this deck. It's, I believe, 16? 16 non-engine, pretty good. That's, like, comparable with Power Patron, or better compared to a lot of lists, right? So, honestly, feels really nice, especially in a 40-card list, right? Then we've got the extra deck. We've got one copy of Odd-Eyes Vortex Dragon. No surprise here. We've got one copy of Odd-Eyes Absolute Dragon. All that matters is that this card goes to grave. You can summon an Odd-Eyes monster from your extra deck, which is usually going to be the Vortex Dragon. Although, we now have another, like, decent target for this, which is the Odd-Eyes Override Dragon, which I will go ahead and read, even though I've read it on this channel before. It takes 2 or more monsters, including a Pendulum monster. You can target one other card you control, destroy it, and if you do, draw a card. And then during your turn, and then actually I'm going to continue with the other effect because it literally just directly ties to this. If you destroy a Pendulum monster card by this card's first effect, during your main phase this turn, you can conduct a Pendulum summon of a Perform a Pal Magician or Odd-Eyes monster in addition to your Pendulum summon. And then on your turn only, you can, if your opponent uses a card or effect, you can discard a card to negate that effect. So on your turn, it's an Omni Negate, and then it also can pop a card, draw a card, and then give you a second pen summon, which that's the important thing. That second pen summon is so strong. Being able to just, like, being able to go, like, the Odd-Eyes guy to get your combo into gear, and then get your way into Override, and then do your, like, real relevant Pendulum summon is so, so good. It lets you do so much with so little. Feels really, really, really nice. Card's very, very strong. Then we've got the one copy of Dark Magician of Destruction. Sucks that you have to play this card with how expensive this card is, but you do kind of need it. It's really, really, really strong. You can do some combos without this card, but they do feel a lot worse without playing this card. This card just cleans up so many lines, just by letting you turn one body into 2. Then we've got one copy of Exceed the Pendulum. No surprise. One copy Beyond the Pendulum. 2 copies of Odd-Eyes Arc-Ray Dragon and 1 copy of Supreme King Z Arc, along with 1 copy of the new Odd-Eyes Soul Blaze Dragon. So these are like a little package that allows you to do some really dumb stuff. So if you guys have never read, the Odd-Eyes Arc-Ray Dragon is a really interesting monster. You can summon it from your extra deck by tributing a level 12 Dark Supreme King Z Arc, and then if this card is summoned from the extra deck, you can place a Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone. And then if this card is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. So this card does just get any scale from your deck, which is important because we are playing the level 12 Supreme King Z Arc Synchro Universe, which is a Dark, and is Zark while on the field. You have to make this with a tuner and a non-tuner Dark Pendulum, and that's where Soul Blaze comes in. This card on summon lets you summon a Pendulum from your extract, but you are locked into Pendulums while that monster is on the field. So normally what you'll do is you'll summon Soul Blaze, and then you will, if you have Skullcrabat already on field, you can just use the Skullcrabat and the Soul Blaze to make a Synchro Zark, and then Synchro Zark can turn into Arc-Ray, and then Arc-Ray can place any scale from your deck, which is really good. The reason we're on 2 of it is, 1, we needed it to make the Monkeyboard Combo work, but also, what you can do is you can go make Synchros. If you already have the Skullcrabat on your board, you can go, don't use Soul Blaze's effect at first, make Synchro Zark, Synchro Zark into Arc-Ray. Arc-Ray place Rev Dragon effect, Reborn Soul Blaze summon back Synchro Zark, and then tribute the Synchro Zark again to summon the Arc-Ray, a second Arc-Ray, because the Arc-Ray effects, none of them are once per turn. So you can just make a second copy of this and get a second scale from the deck. It's really, really strong. I really liked this line. It is admittedly probably bad because these cards, it is kind of a lot of fluff in your extra deck. I'm going to show off the combo. If people have a better version of the combo that does not need to play, at least, 2 copies of this, please let me know. I think it would be very nice to not have to play 2 of this. But if nothing else, it's really funny. After that, we've got the Chaos Angel. This card on summon lets you target a card in the field. And why am I explaining what Chaos Angel does? You all know what Chaos Angel does. 1 copy of Dragoonity Lord Georges. This is a card that came out with the Terminal World stuff for Dragoonity, but it is very generically good. It takes 2 or more monsters, including a tuner, and while it's equipped with a Dragoonity card, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters in the grave. And then, if this card is link summoned or your opponent summons a monster, you summon a level 5 or higher Dragoonity from your extra deck or grave. And then when your opponent uses Spell Trap or effect, you send an equipped card you control to the grave to negate that effect. So this card is broken. This card's crazy. It's Dweller plus, a Spell Trap negate. Now, how are we getting this card equipped with a guy? Well, Lewin, when it's sent to, is a Dragoonity Synchro that we can summon off of the Georges that when sent to grave, lets us equip this to any Dragoonity on our field. So this does it for free, and bonus, when you use the Spell Trap Negate effect, Lewin will re-equip itself to the Georges, so you will then have the lock back on. So this deck very easily just ends on like a Dweller and a Spell Trap Negate for free off of this card, which is so broken. And that's another reason why we're playing the Synchron. It's our tuner for the Georges, which is really important. After that, we've got one copy of Hieratic Seals and one copy of SP. Now, before we get into the combos, I do want to talk about some other things you can play in this deck. As you can see on the side, I've got a lot of things. So let's go ahead and talk about them. First off, we got Spiral Flame Strike. This is a card that really almost made the cut. It is pretty good. I actually like it a lot. It has 2 effects. If you control an Odd Eyes card, you can target a card in the field and destroy it. And then the second effect is you can add to your hand 1 level 7 Odd Eyes monster from your deck, or a face-up level 7 Odd Eyes from your extra deck. So this doesn't have a lot of search targets. It has the Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, the new Overframe, and the Arc Pendulum. So it basically searches all the same stuff that Revolution does. But I really like that this card is also like removal, and it's not once per turn. So this card does get a lot of value if you open multiple copies. I believe 2 copies of this is full combo, which is really cool. And again, it's just removal going second, which is really nice. I do like this card a lot. I think it is legitimately pretty good. I would understand if you wanted to play this card. It is legitimately very solid. I just wanted to fit in more non-engine, but if you were willing, you could definitely throw in 3 of this card. It is honestly pretty solid. Then we've got one copy. Then we've got Access Code, a card I really want to play in this deck because it's so easy to make. There's no like locks on this deck, so you can like get to this very easily, and it's just a very good card for breaking boards, of course. But I just couldn't fit it in the extra deck. This would be what I would probably play over the second Arc Ray if I could make it work. And even if, like, you could also just not have Monkeyboard be a 1-card combo and still make it work. I believe Monkeyboard is still a 1-card that ends on, like, Georges plus, I think it's just Seals. Georges and Seals, which is worse than the 1-card combo I'm going to show off, but admittedly, you don't have to play the second Arc Ray, so it is an improvement. But you know, it's up to you if you think that's good enough, because admittedly this isn't a 1-card combo deck. So I think you could very easily make an argument that, like, you don't need to play the second Arc Ray, but I want to show off the strongest combo possible, but you could definitely fit this card in. You could also try and fit in Arms of Gen X Return 0, which is really easy to make by just using the Synchron and your D-Mod, right? It's very, very simple to get this card out, and it is a monster negate for every attribute in your grave. So you'll be able to, hopefully, if you put in, like, Absolute and D-Mod and maybe like Exceed the Pendulum, you can get like a good what would it be, like 3 negates in theory, right? Depending on, but realistically it'll be 1 negate because you'll probably play against like a mono attribute deck or something. But it'd be nice if you get more, right? Obviously it'd be very, very, very nice. Then we've got the Supreme King package, which is something you could very easily play in this deck. There's a lot of different things you can do with these cards. Gate Magician is a magician, so it pairs really nicely with a lot of these cards. It's also searchable off of your Horoscope Sorcerer. There are a few different cool things you can do. You could play the OG, or you could play the new Supreme King Soul, which allows you to just cheat out Zark. And of course, we're already playing the Arc Ray, so we do have targets for this already. You could also play Soul the Supreme King, which pays half your life to summon a Zark from your extra deck, ignoring its conditions. And then, if your opponent uses a spell card or effect, you can banish that. You banish this card and the Zark from your monster zone to summon 1 Pendulum Dragon, Xyz Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and Fusion Dragon from your hand deck, extra deck, or grave. This is really strong, I will say. But this gets a lot better once we get the next Overframe set, Magnificent Maestros, because we get 2 good Fusion Dragons, and we get a good Fusion Dragon and a good Xyz Dragon to summon off of this. So this card equals like 3 Interruptions on its own, which is so much stronger than what it is now, which is basically just getting you like the Crystal Clearwing. You could also play the Link 3 Soulful Chord monster, which has all Pendulum monsters it points to cannot have their effects negated. So when you summon Zark off of this, if you summon the OG Zark, it can be a board wipe on summon as long as these Coolia is pointing to it, even if you summon it with Soul of the Supreme King, which can obviously be very, very strong. You could definitely try out this package. I think it's too many cards for a 40-card list, but if you wanted to go to like 50 or 60, I could definitely see you playing these cards. They're also just good extenders. You can play Darkworm with Dragon Shrine, and Dragon Shrine will just send Darkworm, and then you can resummon Darkworm on an empty board, and then on summon it'll search the Gate Magician, which can keep extending you from there. Like, it's just very good. It's just very good in terms of card advantage. Helps you get into like Beyond the Pendulum early. A lot of good stuff there. I do like this engine. I played this deck for a really long time, so I'm very familiar with all the lines. Cards are quite good, but it's just a lot of space, and it's not really the focus of this deck. We've then got Heavy Poly. This is a card you could do a few interesting things with. Again, you could play the original Zark, and then basically if you open a Dragon Pendulum, you would have to build your extra deck around it. I don't think we can do it. Well, hold on. Can we do it currently? Because, Zark takes 4 dragon monsters, a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Pendulum. So you would open a Pendulum, dragon, right, in order to make this work. And then if your opponent has 3 or more monsters, you can use, Lewin, which is 1,200, Absolute, which is 28, so that's 4K. And then, you would use Vortex for 25. So you would go down to, 15 to summon either the Odd Eyes Arcray to place from deck, or ideally you would have to find room for it. You would summon the Supreme King Zark to on summon destroy all cards your opponent controls, and this is an untargetable guy. And if he destroys something by battle, he gets to summon a guy from deck. Right? This card is really, really, really strong. But this play is really, really, really strong, but it takes a lot of setup and a lot of things have to go right. But it is, if nothing else, very funny and very satisfying to pull off. After that, we've got the Astrograph Sorcerer. This is something you very easily throw in as a thing you could combo with the Horoscope Sorcerer. I just think the new Astrograph Sorcerer just pairs better with it. And I didn't really see a reason to play this card. This also just doesn't pair well with that many cards. The only card that pops itself in this deck is the new Odd Eyes monster. So I just didn't think this card was super necessary. This card does make Pendulum Call a 1-card starter if you play Horoscope Source, if you play the Stargazer Magician, so you can use this card's scale effect. But it is a very bad 1-card combo, if I'm being honest. I really don't love it, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you wanted more 1-card combos, you could play that line. Then we've got Dragoon, which you could easily throw in with the Gaze of Timaeus. And then the thing I've been seeing a lot is people playing this deck with Patron, and I understand why. So Astrograph can place any of the scale 1 power patrons from the deck, which is most of them, and then you can pop it with various effects. That's really strong in theory, and these do give you more 1-card combos, so I don't dislike that. But most of those lists really cut down on non-engine. Notably, these are not cards you can discard for Horoscope Sorcerer, so if you draw Horoscope Sorcerer plus the Power Patron cards, it's going to feel really, really bad. I just think there's a lot of scenarios where these cards are just not very good. I'm not saying I think they're bad. There's a lot of merit to these cards. It also means that if you search a high scale, these cards get a lot better. If you can search Shade the Obscure off of the Odd Eyes monster, and then when you Pendulum Summon, you can bounce the Shade back to your hand to do a full Power Patron combo, which is pretty damn good. But it's just, these feel like they are win more for going first versus actually being super good on their own. Now, that being said, I think there is a very real world where you play this as the sloppiest pen pile of all time. You play all of these cards plus the Supreme King cards plus the Power Patron cards, and you just play a 60 card monstrosity, Usman McMahon style. If you guys I don't think that's the right pronunciation of his name, but if you know, you know. If you know ball, you know. These cards are really good. Obviously, my channel has so many videos on why these cards are good, but I don't think they play that well with a 40 card version of this deck. I think if you want to play Patron cards, you should just play Patron if you want to play a 40 card list. And then there is Impulse, which you could theoretically play in this deck. There's not that many conflictions. It's really just because notably a lot of the cards that aren't darks in this deck, you only care about the scale effects, which you can still use under Impulse. The cards you get locked out of is Valet, Lady Ange, and more importantly, the Odd Eyes extra deck monsters, which is a pretty big deal. Getting locked out of Vortex, you don't get locked out of Absolute, but you do get locked out of Vortex, and Override is a big one. Override really is super important to how this deck plays, and losing access to this card is really rough, but you could probably make Impulse work. This card is good, and a lot of your plays still work even if you use this card. So You might also just be able to build your extra to utilize it better as well. So this is definitely a card to consider for sure. I could definitely see a world where you play this card. Now that we've finally gotten that all out of the way, let's get into the combo. All right, so this is going to be a single copy of Monkeyboard. We're going to scale Monkeyboard. We're going to use its effect to search the Skullcrobat Joker from the deck. We're going to normal the Skullcrobat Joker and get Rev Dragon. This is important because we need to make sure we have the Rev Dragon in rotation, which is why we're getting this instead of just directly getting one of the cards it searches. We're going to use Rev Dragon. We're going to search out our new Odd Eyes monster. We're going to use this effect to search out a Odd Eyes Seer. We're going to use Odd Eyes Seer's scale effect to add back the Rev Dragon. Rev Dragon will then search our Arc Pendulum Dragon. We'll scale it, and then we will go ahead and do our first Pendulum Summon of the turn to summon the Odd Eyes Seer. Odd Eyes Seer can now send from the deck the Odd Eyes Butler. Odd Eyes Butler can pop Seer to summon itself. That'll trigger the Arc Pen to summon the Synchron from the deck. Now the Synchron can use the Monkeyboard as material to make the Soul Blaze. We'll then We'll then not use the Soul Blaze to use its effect. We're going to instead just sync off the Soul Blaze and the Skullcrobat on our field to make the Synchro Zark, and we'll do the play I just talked about. We'll tribute the Zark, summon the Arc Ray. The Arc Ray will place the Rev Dragon from the deck, and then the Rev Dragon will reborn the Soul Blaze in order to trigger the Soul Blaze on summon to summon back the Synchro Zark. Synchro Zark will then turn into a second Arc Ray. Arc Ray will then place the Astrograph from the deck, and then the Astrograph will place the Horoscope Sorcerer. So we've now got the Horoscope Sorcerer to use its effects on our. So we have the negate online now, which is really nice. We can now go into Override Dragon, and then Override Dragon can pop the Arc Ray to draw a card and get our second Pendulum Summon. Now we can go ahead and pen summon 3 monsters. We're going to pen summon the Synchron, the Seer, and the Astrograph Sorcerer. This is just the best ones that we could get for this. We're now going to banish the Seer in order to summon the D-Mod, and then D-Mod will get the Curtain from the deck. We're then going to use Curtain to summon from the deck our Horoscope Sorcerer. We're then going to link our 3 monsters off. We're going to link the Synchron, the D-Mod, and the guy we summoned to make Exceed. Exceed's going to add back the Synchron, and then we can use Exceed to summon the Synchron. Then we can link these 2 off for Georges. Georges will summon Lewin. Notably, something I should have done before I linked off the Override, because the Override is a negate, so theoretically it's nib protection, or just protection from hand traps in general. What I should have done is I should have used Astrograph to summon Vortex before I made seals here and linked off the Override, so we always had a negate on our board from that point. So just something to keep in mind. I did do a small misplay here. But anyway, we're going to turn the Lewin and the Override into seals, and then we're going to use Lewin to re-equip to the Georges, and then finally we're going to use Astrograph, shuffle back 2 of our names for Vortex Dragon. So this is the end board. It doesn't look super crazy, but it is quite a lot. This is Seals bounce, and then when Seals tributes itself, it's going to summon from the deck our Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, which is going to be able to block a lot of attacks. Your opponent will have to punch into it once, which will trigger its effect to add itself back and then summon itself. And since they destroyed an Odd Eyes monster, if they haven't dealt with Arc Pendulum Dragon, Arc Pen will be able to summon an Odd Eyes monster from the grave or deck, which gets you even more bodies to block with. And if one of those is Vortex, you also get to bounce one of your opponent's attack position monsters. So this is also going to potentially bounce a guy back. So a lot of blocking here. Like, it is a really annoying battle trick that we get just for making seals here and using its effect. Then we have the Georges, which is locking them out of grave effects, and it's a spell trap negate. So big ups there. And then we have Vortex Dragon, which is an Omni negate. And then we have the Horoscope and Scale, which is a spell negate on resolution. So this should be able to beat pretty much any board breaker our opponent throws at us. Of course, if they have multiple, it's going to be really annoying. But just one board breaker we can deal with, no problem. And you got to draw 1 off of the Override Dragon. So this is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interruptions off of the 1-card Monkeyboard Combo. Pretty solid, if you ask me. There's also some amount of follow-up here just because of the seals. And you have the Arc Pen, which will float. Even if like they just pop the Vortex, that'll also make the Arc Pen use its float effect, which can just summon back the Vortex, by the way. So like Fallen and the Virtuous isn't even like a super good counter to this board. Like if they don't know what they're doing and they like Fallen and the Virtuous, the Vortex Dragon, you can just go, okay, Reborn Vortex, and it just doesn't matter. So that's awesome. In my opinion, this is really, really, really strong. And is in probably the best 1-card combo you can do in any of like the Magician, Odd Eyes, or like Supreme King decks. I think this is the best 1-card combo you can do with any of those. And that's been the list. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know if you guys want to see more content on this deck, or if you want to see more content on like Maybe I can make a Supreme King deck profile, or I could make a profile for like that big 60 card pile version. I wouldn't mind doing any of that. This deck's really cool. I definitely want to mess around with it once we get the overframes in a couple. I think it's in like a week. I really like these cards. I think this deck feels really nice, like shockingly nice. Of course, it's not a 1-card combo deck, which is rough. Obviously, modern Yu-Gi-Oh is built around 1-card combos, but this deck's, if nothing else, very, very fun, and I would absolutely recommend it, especially if you've enjoyed playing Power Patron. This is just a fun-ass Pendulum deck. What do you want me to say? Anyway, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.